The Eiffel Tower, the world's most famous landmark. Soaring above Paris like a prima donna, she has almost obscured the remarkable man who made her.
I should be jealous of the tower. It is so much more celebrated than I. People seem to think it is my only work. But after all, I have done some other things as well.
Other things, all over the world. Without him, the Statue of Liberty would not stand, nor perhaps the famous skylines. Monsieur le Grand Eiffel, grandson of Gustave Eiffel, who was 34 when his grandfather died, sums it up.
It was his metal frameworks that made it possible to build to great heights. At the New York World's Fair some years ago, the president of U.S. Steel said to me, "It could be said we Americans owe our skyscrapers to Eiffel's science and technique."
Gustave Alexander Eiffel was born in Dijon in 1832, the eldest of 3 children. His father had been a hussar in Napoleon's army.
From my father, I inherited a great taste for adventure.
His adoring mother was a hard-headed businesswoman who ran the family coal company.
For my mother, a love of hard work and responsibility.
These 2 good people would never fail him as long as they lived. Le Castel, the family house, from which Gustave attended the local school.
The malodorous premises, dark and cold, the detentions, the excessive learning by heart have left a doleful memory.
Doleful or not, with the report cards came bills for broken window panes, a crystal lamp, a broken chamber pot. However, by the time he entered the College of Engineering in Paris, he had found, as he said, the joy of learning, and submitted enthusiastically to the heavy discipline. But his heart remained with the family. On his mother's birthday,
"My dearest mother, I see you all in the little salon, my father and sisters rising to kiss you, and for the first time, I am not there."
But it was not all hard work. This was the Paris of Manet, Renoir, Offenbach. It all resulted in a debt to his landlord of 800 gold francs. Maman was aghast, but she paid the debt. After all, a telegram had just arrived. Gustave has his diploma. His first job was in Dijon, near his beloved family. But soon he was back in Paris, where he obtained a position as personal assistant to the brilliant and eccentric Charles Neveu, constructor of ironworks and railroad equipment.
"Dear Mama, Monsieur Neveu treats me absolutely as an equal. I am learning a lot about railways. Thanks to him, I am on the right road."
Only 2 years later, 1858, Neveu submitted Eiffel's designs for a major railroad bridge at Bordeaux. The designs were not only accepted, but Eiffel was put in complete charge at 26. The huge double pylons had to be sunk 80 feet below the river. Eiffel applied the very new technique, compressed air, in a highly original way that enabled his men to work safely underwater. It was his first technical achievement, commemorated by a touching medallion from his workmen. Respect, thanks, remembrance. At 28, with a steady job and modest recognition, his design for life called for marriage. But he was constantly on the move, working on bridges in France and Spain. So he sent a blueprint to his parents in Dijon for a suitable wife. She must be young, rich, beautiful, and bear him handsome children. But a year later, older and wiser, Eiffel revised his specifications.
"I should be happy with a girl of passable good looks and a modest dowry. But she must be extremely kind-hearted and even-tempered, a good housekeeper who will bear healthy children that are definitely mine."
On a visit to Dijon, he met Marguerite Godelet, the daughter of an old family friend. Fresh from a convent and only 16, she more than met all his requirements.
"Ma chère petite, if only I could inspire you to give me the whole of your heart, which I love so much."
They were married that year, July 1862. Their marriage proved harmonious and ardent. His work took them back to Paris, where, the following year,
We have a beautiful baby daughter. Now we must start all over again for a son.
When at last the son arrived, their third child, there was a worldwide depression. Nevertheless, Eiffel gave up his job and risked independence. Starting from a room in their apartment, then borrowing money from home, he built a house and a plant in a suburb of Paris. From here, all his ensuing work was to emanate. Orders trickled in. Small railroad bridges, frameworks for churches, among them the beautiful Temple of Tournelle. But it wasn't easy. He wrote Papa,
"Payments are slow, and I badly need financing. I will get there, but I am having a hard time of it."
He got there later that year. The railroad era was expanding. Masonry bridges, slow and costly, were outdated.
Dear Maman, the Orléans Railway wants to construct large viaducts over the Sioule near Vichy on metal pylons 160 feet high. I managed to get admitted to the bidding with the 3 biggest builders in France.
His metal pylons were to change the whole concept of bridge building. He began giving up cast iron, heavy and brittle, using a lighter material for the crossbeams. And since these metals could not be fused, he originated a flange to join them. The base was strengthened with arched curves, already a premonition of the tower. But 1870... Eiffel dispatched his pregnant wife and 3 children to the south of France. He remained in the city, building fortifications. Correspondence was difficult, except by balloon.
My dear Marguerite, kiss the children for me, and have no fear. Everything is in perfect state of defense.
But France fell. Alsace and part of Lorraine were ceded to Germany along with a crushing payment in gold. With the war over, the family returned to Paris. But Eiffel was everywhere. Zurich, Munich, Bern. In Budapest, a railroad station was ordered.
Dear Marguerite, a system of sleeping cars has just been installed on this line. One can sleep in real sheets and undressed for 2 nights. What beach have you made your way to for your sea bathing?
From his plant, Eiffel was now evolving prefabrication, enabling him to send frameworks in parts to distant sites. And so, for Chile, a pier. For Peru, columns sailed across the Atlantic for an exhibition palace, which is now the Museum of Art in Lima. Portugal had invited bids for its projected Maria Pia Bridge over the Douro River. Against the largest companies of all Europe, Eiffel won the contract. The depth and rapidity of the Douro prohibited sinking pylons for intermediate supports. The job defied known techniques. Eiffel proceeded to devise a new one, to span the river with a huge parabolic arch, each inclining segment suspended during construction by steel cables until the sides finally linked 200 feet above the river. The engineering community was stunned. The first of its kind. The method is now standard bridge building procedure. Considered by many the world's most beautiful bridge. With achievement, fame, came Eiffel's deepest personal tragedy. In August 77, he wrote his parents,
Marguerite has a serious illness which leaves little hope. We have consulted several of the greatest doctors.
And a month later,
my poor, dear Marguerite died tonight at 4 o'clock.
Marguerite was 32. Within a year, Both his parents were also dead. His sister Marie, who was childless, took over the care of his 5 children. He was never to remarry. In his grief, Eiffel turned to his work. He now headed a small army of mathematicians, engineers, draftsmen, foremen, and laborers. Orders were coming in from everywhere. In Spain, the Asturias station, the Taja, the Cobas. For Portugal, a railroad bridge at Viana. In Hungary, the Tsegadin. For Russia, designs for a bridge on the Neva, a dam on the Moscow River. In France, the viaduct of La Tarde, an observatory in Nice. For the French army, a special portable bridge, promptly ordered by the competing armies of Austria, Italy, and Russia. For the French colonies to open new trade routes, steel bridges made up of identical triangular pieces. Near Saigon, the Dong Nguyen, the Rachlin. Mass-produced and standardized a century ago, they could be put together like an erector set. Bolivia ordered a bridge to be carried on llama back, no piece to exceed 100 pounds. Having pioneered metal in bridges, he also showed its place in architecture. In Paris, Eiffel converted the Bon Marché to the most modern department store. People came in droves to be served by young ladies trained in the social graces. Novelty was everywhere. From the counting room to the stables. A sensation. Unfair to competition. Evening concerts out of doors. Eiffel had to repeat the miracle for a rival house, Les Grands Magasins du Louvre. Again, great stairways, vast halls, the stylish arc lights, the elevator, the weighing machine. The Crédit Lyonnais commissioned a luxurious new headquarters in Paris.
But banks must be doubly cautious, so just in case, design it, please, so it can be turned into a department store.
The elegant glass roofs, marble stairs still lead to vaults where Madame may deposit her jewels and Monsieur clip his coupons. In the Paris Exposition of 1878, Eiffel constructed the principal facade. The exposition had a special attraction, the head of the Statue of Liberty. With the torch, it was all that was ready of that astonishing gift of the French people to the United States, commemorating the American Revolution. Its sculptor, Auguste Bartholdi, had designed what is still the world's largest statue, 152 feet high, shaping it with hundreds of thin copper sheets. No conventional armature could hold this giant together or keep it upright. Bartholdi called in Gustave Eiffel. Eiffel, fired by the French gesture, created a new pylon. And a maze of struts supporting the delicate exterior. Miss Liberty stood in scaffolding in Paris for a year. Then crossed the Atlantic in 210 crates to be re-erected in her new home. She looked serenely down her yard-and-a-half-long nose. Eiffel had secured her against the gales of New York Harbor. Then, for the rugged Trier Valley in central France, the government simply came to the universal builder, as the Americans had dubbed him, for the awesome Garabie Viaduct. Many engineers regard the Garabie as Eiffel's masterpiece. He invented a system of intersecting metal beams which made it possible to build pylons to very great heights. The story goes that when the main arcs were about to join, his assistants were seized with fear. A sudden mountain wind could sweep all of them and the bridge into the abyss 400 feet below. Eiffel smiled.
Calm yourselves. There will be no wind.
He was really saying, let there be wind. My calculations have already allowed for it. Awards were accumulating from kings and emperors. Engineers everywhere were copying his methods. But Eiffel disdained secrecy.
What I know I owe to my precursors. In turn, my discoveries must serve the young. It is a debt to be paid. Let them copy my works. I will always be thinking of something new.
He was, in fact, thinking of the technological challenge of the times, to build 1,000 feet above the ground. Several countries had attempted it. So far, the recently finished Washington Monument, made of stone, was the highest building in the world at 550 feet. In Paris, however, directors of the World's Fair of 1889 were determined to have this impossible 1,000-foot structure. 700 designs were submitted. Eiffel's Iron Tower was chosen as the only clearly feasible project. The proposed tower appeared in the press, and despite his great reputation, the attacks began. Local citizens were outraged.
In the art of Paris, crazy tower.
What if it falls? Our houses may be crushed.
I will sue Eiffel.
I make myself personally responsible for any damage the tower may cause, even to the point of demolishing it.
Foundations were sunk in 1887. Huge feet began to emerge. But when the 4 legs, supported by scaffolding, rose to make the crucial juncture into the first platform, conservative mathematicians and envious engineers prophesied doom.
The arches have no support. It will collapse at 700 feet. It can never withstand the violence of the wind.
Eiffel's fate lay in his 1,000 graphs and calculations.
The shape was basically determined by the forces of the wind. In a way, the tower is molded by the wind itself.
Sunday crowds watched the progress. Lattices began to sprout. A lacework of iron, its ill-understood function to offer the least resistance to the wind. Meanwhile, a sweeping attack had come from 50 leading intellectuals, publicly demanding that construction be halted.
We, the writers, painters, architects of France, passionate lovers of beauty, protest with all our strength. French taste is profaned. All our great architecture is menaced by this useless and monstrous tower.
The artists claim the tower is ugly and useless, because engineers build solidly. Do we not also strive for elegance? I believe the curve of the 4 unusual arches tapering to the summit will manifest strength and beauty. As for utility, it will prove useful for scientific observations.
The construction was a feat of pre-assembly. 15,000 metal parts, individually designed, each ticketed for its exact position, flowed from workshop to site. Most of the rivets were already in place. 2.5 million of them. Not a hole needed piercing or a single adjustment. In familiar frock coat and top hat, Eiffel seemed everywhere at once.
They said even if it looked all right on paper, I would never find men able to work at such heights. There would be terrible accidents.
Hey! Don't you get dizzy up there? No more dizzy at 400 feet than at 40.
The boss says it's all in the mind.
Listen, we built the Soul, the Douro, the Garabi, 500 feet above nothing.
What bothers us is the birds.
That is why we keep our hats on.
An elite corps, they became known as the Carpenters of the Sky. The tower went up in a phenomenal 2 years. The Washington Monument had taken 14. Because of Eiffel's rigid safety measures, it was built without a single death or injury. But Eiffel understood the men's effort. His book, The 1,000-Foot Tower, dedicated to colleagues and workforce, listed each Carpenter of the Sky by name. Before the elevators were ready, the official preview. 50 important guests puffed and panted up the 1,780 stairs. To gaze as Eiffel, overcome with emotion, hoisted the tricolor. And among the speeches, a carpenter.
Let us tell our children and our grandchildren we worked on the most important monument in the world. Vive l'ingénieur Eiffel! Vive la France! Vive la République!
May 1889, the President of France opened the fair to the public. There were many attractions. The first motor car was exhibited, a Benz, the Trocadero. But the crowd besieged the tower. Marveling at its restaurants, its own daily newspaper, its panoramic views, and the fascinating novelty, the elevators. The 2 million visitors that first year repaid the entire cost of the tower, 7 million francs. Even while building the tower, Eiffel had been asked to assume a second gigantic task, to redesign the Panama Canal, a problem that had thwarted the French engineer de Lesseps for 8 years. Eiffel planned and was building locks at different levels to lift ships across the high rocky barrier between the two oceans. Then, in the midst of success, disgrace, sudden and unjust. The company had been grossly mismanaged. Investors lost everything. Although he was completely cleared, it remained the bitterest experience of his life. Later, when the United States successfully built the canal, his basic designs were recognized and used, but he had long since turned away from the world of commerce. At 60, the great constructor embarked on a 30-year career in pure science. Had he never built the tower, or his other great works, Gustave Eiffel would have ranked as one of the foremost scientists of the 19th century. He began by probing the inmost secrets of his old adversary.
The wind. All my life I've had to fight the wind. Its speed and pressure have been so little studied in France.
He transformed the tower into a virtual laboratory. Rain gauge, weather vane, wind gauge, barometer, hygrometer, laboratories. He introduced weather forecasting in France. It was he who built the first effective wind tunnel. Blériot and the early aviators tested their models with him. His principles are still used in today's supersonic laboratories. His thousands of experiments in air resistance became worldwide classics and led to streamlined aircraft. His work brought him a unique and most treasured award. In May 1913, he wrote his son,
My dear Edouard, the Smithsonian Institute in Washington has bestowed on me their gold medal for my work in aviation. It moved me to tears.
The medal had previously been awarded only to the Wright brothers, inventors of the first airplane. At 80, famous, modest, retaining his zest for work and people, revered by young scientists, racing around Paris in one of the first automobiles in France. Work hard, play hard was his creed. And above all, the family. Children, grandchildren, in-laws lived under his benevolent roof. His sister Marie next door.
Grandfather's birthday, December 15th, was a great family party. And the gift he wanted was just the product of our imagination. A drawing, reciting a poem, making a model. I personally played the piano, for instance, and this continued all his life.
Were the grandchildren ever afraid of such a famous grandfather?
Oh, no, never. We didn't stand in awe of him at all. We felt he was someone extraordinary. He was so good. He was a great sportsman. He used to advise us and give us tips, and we were delighted.
When, in 1921, the first live radio in France was broadcast from the ugly, useless tower, the inventor, at 89, was cheerfully writing his memoirs. With the final touch of his precise planning, almost as he closed the last page, he closed his eyes. The 1,000-foot tower reigned supreme for 40 years. Then, 1929, the Chrysler Building, 1,046 feet. 1931, the Empire State, 1,240 feet. Another 40 years, a mushrooming of giants. The New York Trade Center, Chicago Sears Tower, also in Chicago, the John Hancock. Atop this building is a piece from a girder of the Eiffel Tower, recognition of a debt to the father of the skyscraper. No doubt others will follow, topping the tower in height, but never matching it in daring design and beauty.